Does anyone else remember a restaurant called Baja Fresh? They were a sort of fast food burrito place, pretty similar to joints like Qdoba or Chipotle. In the 2000s, they seemed to be all over the place, but around 10 or so years ago, they all seemed to disappear just about overnight. I have no idea if they even exist anymore. Anyway, their whole thing was great big burritos and also their elaborate salsa bar. Now, one of their salsas was this really strange, dark looking concoction that at first I thought tasted incredibly weird, but I very quickly acquired a taste for it, and for a while that's all I wanted to eat on my Mexican food. But then, as I said, Baja Fresh went away, at least in Michigan as far as I could tell, so I was out of luck. Then years later, it occurred to me to try and figure out how to recreate that salsa myself. I can't be certain if I've nailed their taste 100% because it's been a decade or more since I've tasted it, but I think it's definitely close. What I do know is I've ended up with an absolutely delicious, bizarre, smoky, bold creation known as black salsa. And today in the Great Lakes Kitchen, I'm going to show you exactly how to make it. As always, let's start by taking a look at our ingredients. We have 10 Roma tomatoes, a Spanish onion, fresh cilantro, limes, a couple poblano and jalapeno peppers, fresh garlic, black pepper, kosher salt, white vinegar, and extra virgin olive oil. A quick note, a really good pepper to use for this salsa is the pasilla pepper, but if you can't find fresh pasilla peppers, which I often cannot, poblanos are a good substitute. This is actually a very easy salsa to make, and there is very little prep work. I'll cut all of the Roma tomatoes in half, and then peel the onion and cut it in half. Now, most of these vegetables are going on the grill. That's right, this is where all the magic happens with black salsa. We're going to grill the tomatoes, peppers, and onion until they get very, very charred. I'll put the tomato halves skin side down and leave them. For the onion and peppers, I'll end up turning them a couple of times to make sure they get blackened all over. Not just browned, not just a little crispy around the edges. We want to leave these over the fire until the tomatoes and pepper skins are completely black. If this seems crazy to you, it seemed pretty nuts to me at first too. But yeah, this is where the deep, smoky flavor and color comes from in black salsa. Once the peppers and tomatoes are pretty well scorched, I'm taking them off the grill. The tomatoes were on for about 40 minutes total, and the peppers about 25. It may take more or less time depending on your grill, ambient temperature, and so forth. I'll mention that I don't wait for the onion to become entirely charred because there's just not a great way to evenly char a halved onion all the way around. But that's fine, we're going to have plenty of flavor here. Now we're back inside and moving on to the next step. I don't do anything else to prep my tomatoes or onions, but I will remove the stems and most of the seeds from my poblanos and jalapenos. I'm not too picky about getting all the seeds out. I'll just do my best to get the bulk of them out of there. Now to throw everything together. If you have one of those high-powered countertop blenders, this would be the perfect time to break it out. I don't have one of those, so I'm going to be doing all my blending with an immersion blender. Accordingly, I like to have lots of room to work and make a mess, so I'm throwing all my ingredients into a medium-sized stock pot. To my tomatoes, peppers, and onions, I'll add some fresh squeezed lime juice. Use the juice from 1 large lime or 2 small limes. These are pretty small, so I'm using 2. Then I'll roughly chop up 3 big cloves of garlic and throw that in. Now for 1 teaspoon kosher salt and 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And of course lots of cilantro. I'm using an entire bunch of fresh cilantro, minus the stems for the most part. Finally, I'll pour in 1/4 cup extra virgin olive oil and 1/8 of a cup of white vinegar. Me adding the white vinegar somehow didn't get recorded on this video, but I assure you it's in there. And now it's time to blend. I'll blend everything very, very thoroughly until I've basically got a puree. With this little immersion blender, it just takes a few minutes. Now for a little fine tuning. Depending on the juiciness of your tomatoes, adding some water is usually necessary. I'll pour in just a little water at a time and blend some more until the consistency is how I want it. All in all, I ended up adding around half a cup of water. And that's it. Now the salsa is ready to be served or refrigerated for later. I always prefer my salsa cold, so I'll pour it into a jar and refrigerate it for a while. This recipe makes pretty much exactly 1 quart of salsa. By the way, salsa always thickens up a little more once refrigerated, so I could add even a little more water to this if I wanted. The flavor is so bold, I promise you won't be diluting the taste by any noticeable amount. But the consistency just comes down to personal preference. That Baja Black Salsa was very thin, too thin actually. It tasted amazing, but it was so thin it hardly stuck to a nacho chip. I definitely don't have that problem here. Anyhow, give this weird, delicious salsa a try. I would call this right here a medium spicy recipe, but if you want less spicy, remove one of the jalapenos. Want more spice? Add more jalapeno or serrano or habanero pepper. And lastly, this salsa does freeze very well. Just put it into a freezer-safe container and stick it in the freezer till you want to use it. Note that unlike my other salsa making videos, this is not a canning recipe. Black salsa can absolutely be canned, but a couple of slight adjustments would have to be made to this recipe to make it canning friendly. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay up to date with all our latest stuff, including future food videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time right here in the Great Lakes Kitchen.